Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Duke Football Coverage Podcast, brought to you as always by Bull City Coordinators. You can follow us on our website, bullcitycoordinators.com. Check us out on Twitter at DukeFB Coverage. We're on Reddit. You can listen to us anywhere you can get your podcasts. Also, check out our friends over at the Section 17 Duke Football Talk podcast. They had an interview with Cade Parmalee that was very good. I listened to it yesterday and enjoyed it. But today we're getting ready to close out Season 1. This is the last of the second to last of the interviews we have planned for Season 1, and we are going to where championships are won. We're going to the defensive side of the ball. A former Duke defensive lineman that I'm sure you guys remember very well. We have Mike Ramsay with us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to another great talk with a very, very good member of Blue Devils football history. And as we talked about for a little bit, we as fans don't really get to know you personally, don't get to know the players personally. We see you on the field with helmets on, shoulder pads, and all that. So why don't you just take a few minutes, tell us what you're up to now, what you've been doing since you finished your time in Durham.
Oh, awesome. So after I graduated in 2017, I went on to train for the draft in Georgia. Went to GATA. I definitely recommend them. Great guys over there at GATA on Johns Creek. I went undrafted to the Tennessee Titans. Ended up getting cut after the preseason. Went up to Canada for a little bit with the BC Lions. Met some good friends up there while I was there. Ended up coming back to the U.S., went to the AAF with Orlando Apollos for a little bit when the AAF was still a thing. Let's see. Then I spent some time with the Eagles. And then following that, I decided I was done bouncing around. Wasn't really getting much traction over those 2 years after I graduated from Duke. So I started working here in Atlanta. I'm currently working as a senior analyst with Accenture, a consulting firm here in Atlanta. Things are going well.
Well,
that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad things are going well for you. Tell us a little bit about the differences between Canadian football and the NFL.
Well, I got immediately my first biggest slap in the face, I guess, once getting to Canada was like the fans and also like the resources. I would say that my facility, while in Vancouver, a lot of the NFL guys would never walk into as far as like the cold tub or what was available, like recovery-wise. Other than that, I don't really love the being off the yard, off the ball with the defensive lineman, of course. Actually talked to Coach Albert recently. Shout out to Coach Albert, but I was telling everyone to get off the ball and, of course, like close the distance to your offensive lineman. So giving them a yard is kind of unfortunate. But outside of that, I enjoyed my time. Like I said, met some great guys up there. Some I still keep in contact with now. So every experience has its positives.
Tell us a little bit about what the process was like for you getting ready to go through the draft and then the signing process after that.
Getting ready, of course, generally try to tell us to not really talk to agents until after your senior season there, but I definitely did not do that. I don't recommend that at all. I started talking to some during my senior season and ended up finding one that I liked in Wilmington with Gary Shipman. So that was a unique experience. Of course, I had to talk to different people, phone calls, and go meet with them, see what they're about, and how they're willing to help you if they believe in your NFL prospect and how well you'll turn out. So that was a chaotic experience, especially while trying to play, and then having that pressure of where am I going to sign, how will it work out. So definitely try to take it day by day and just try to stay focused on football. And then afterwards, the signing process, I was undrafted, so I signed like a standard undrafted contract, whatever the minimum is. But of course, it doesn't really mean anything until you make the team. So I always wondered why that was even a thing kind of beforehand. But yeah.
Now, I'd be getting yelled at if I didn't ask you about this, since you mentioned you played for the Apollos and your head coach was the old ball coach himself, Steve Spurrier, if I remember correctly. Can you?
Yeah.
You can't have a Duke podcast and not mention Spurrier if you get the chance. So tell us what you can about what he was like.
Oh, I thought he was great. High energy. Definitely had, of course, a lot of great football experience. Was a great positive guy. Of course, I didn't spend too much personal time with him, but I spoke with him a couple times, and I love his energy and how he approached practices and tried to motivate guys. So I have nothing but great things to say for Spurrier.
Did you get to hear any of those classic Spurrier zingers we've all come to know and love over the years?
None that I can spit back at you right now, but I'm sure that I have.
Well, let's just hope none of them were directed at you. So,
yeah. Luckily, no, I did not get chewed out by him, so I live to talk about that. So,
well,
yeah, it was a good experience.
Tell us a little bit about, and I've talked to a couple of your former teammates about this, and I'm just curious what your perspective on this is like. You go from playing at a high level, you go through some professional leagues. You were with the Titans, the Eagles, you were in Canada, you were with the Apollos, you're around a guy like Steve Spurrier. You go from that to saying, all right, it's time to move on, time to do something else. Tell us a little bit about what that process is like, transitioning out of football.
It can definitely be tough for some guys. I think for me, it wasn't too bad. I definitely felt like while with Tennessee and throughout all of these teams, I definitely gave it all I got as far as like whether it's studying the playbook or physical-wise, kind of bringing my best. So I feel like as long as you don't hold out and definitely try to bring your best every day, you can walk away knowing that you did all you could. I think that the biggest thing is having regrets, wishing that you would have or could have. Of course, everyone ever wants to have to deal with that. So definitely say just give it your all, and it's okay. Definitely stay in tune with your star player. Know and love yourself, because if you kind of hone all of your identity from one single thing, it can be kind of hard when that leaves. But like I said, luckily I still keep in contact with a lot of the guys. But I feel like more than missing football, I kind of miss the brotherhood of having all my guys in the locker room, not really waking up at 5 a.m. or lifting or running. It's not really what I miss, but just like the camaraderie more so. So I think that especially in the recent climate, I think you really need to know and love yourself to be able to move past playing or any other failure. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but to me it was a failure as far as like not seeing it all the way through football-wise, but being able to bounce back from that starts and ends with you and what's between your ears.
Tell us a little bit about what kind of interests you or what you've done to try to not just get too focused on just one thing like football. And as an attorney, I see this a lot with lawyers who hang around too long because they don't have a lot outside of the day-to-day grind of practicing law. But tell us a little bit about what you've done to try to make sure you have divergent interests and other things going on in your life.
I would just say, kind of like I said, knowing yourself, kind of spending some time to think. One thing my dad always told me at the end of each day when you're laying down or relaxing, getting for bed, kind of reflect on what went right, what went wrong throughout the day. Kind of like a mental checklist of like where you wish you would have went left or where you thought you could have went right. So kind of having a mental recap of what went well throughout the day. And then also, I don't know, trying different things. I'm really interested in like financial literacy at the moment. I listen to a lot of like Earn Your Leisure and The Master Investor, like Ian Dunlap and a bunch of other guys. I don't know if you're familiar with any of them, but of how to like build wealth. So I'm pretty interested in that now. I'm starting to invest in things of that nature. I love video games. I play a lot like FIFA and stuff like that. But I don't know, just taking time to try things, reflect on yourself, know yourself, and take it one day at a time.
It's interesting what you say about financial literature. That's one thing I wish that I had known a lot more about when I was going through high school and college, that I focused a lot more on that, especially being at the law firm I'm at now where management is a lot more significant and I'm involved in. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on what schools or our education system should do to try to make that a core component of our standard education prerequisites and core requirements.
Great question. Before I answer that, I actually shout out to also Alan Jackson, one of my roommates. He's actually going to talk to me about Earn Your Leisure and kind of turn me on to investing and stuff like that. So shout out to him. And repeat that one more time.
Well,
when it comes to the school system, I think it should be revamped entirely. I thought that the Biden administration was talking about extending school 2 more years. I thought that was a garbage decision. I think school needs to be completely redone. I feel like it's a waste of time from top to bottom. There's nothing that I really look back on what I've learned, even though it's a nice private school here in Georgia. There's nothing that I really use for my day to day. It was kind of all just a waste of time. So I think that needs to be completely redone as far as like learning about history, what actually happened here in the U.S. And then also just like home ec, how to balance your checkbook, what credit looks like, fixing your credit, the importance of credit. I feel like especially in the Black community, like my mom and a lot of other moms, like they scare you about credit. Like, don't get a credit card when it's actually like, no, get a credit card, but be responsible. So I think that from top to bottom, it's garbage, in my humble opinion.
Well, so sticking with that, I have a history degree, and that was something that I just loved pretty much from junior high all through college, and I read a lot about it. But you mentioned switching up kind of the history discussion that we have. Tell us a little bit about what you mean by that.
I mean, not what I mean by that, especially, I feel like a lot of the kind of notion, I believe, when you think about what we see, I don't know, I feel like it's whitewashed. And of course, history is written by the victor, so, whoever wins gets to write the history books. But I think that we kind of quickly skate over a lot of things that happened in the U.S. and kind of focus on, of course, all these generals, and we learned about Robert E. Lee and all these things. It's just regular, and all these Confederate generals, all these schools that are finally coming down. So I feel like instead of like, paying homage and like glorifying the Confederate flag and these generals, I think we need to tell a more real story, personally. But I mean, everyone has their opinion, but that is mine.
Yeah, and I've always kind of been interested in how you find the time in a school system that is not year round, and we have summer breaks, to broaden the perspective of what's being taught, how it's being taught, and what ideas and concepts students are being exposed to. Because when you lose several months out of the year to kids not being there, I think it gets harder to not just say, here was a battle, or here was an election, here's the next president that came after this one, and you take it past that. So I'd be interested to see maybe if the answer to a lot of this is year-round school, and what your thoughts are on that.
I would be open to that, honestly, because I think you have, like, I don't really know the breakdown. What is it, like 3 weeks on, 1 week off? Right? What's like the breakdown of year-round school? I think it could potentially be done that way, but I think that, like I said, I definitely think like a real lens on like revamping it. Even with my company now that I work for, like every few months, 2 years, like they reshuffle things. So like our like organization structure just recently changed, and I feel like we're still reading To Kill a Mockingbird, we're still reading Great Gatsby, we're still reading all these. Like I feel like it's just garbage. There's no real thought, I feel like, pressed into the school system. It's just like, let's just do these things over and over again because it's how we've always done it. And I mean, that's how I feel.
And I think one of the key things that we're doing right now that I think is reflective of how maybe perspectives get a good bit broadened is you and I are having a discussion about this, right? And we're talking about, and this is in the context of a football podcast, right? So,
yes.
You and I have a discussion about this, and we throw some ideas out there. I remember reading in college a couple of Richard Wright novels, which were just mind-blowing to me, and it opened my mind to how little I know about a lot of things, and I thought that was important. And a lot of his themes and what he gets into may be a little bit harder for your average high school student to read, right?
Absolutely.
So, but there does seem to need to be a way to broaden people's perspective and kind of just expose them to different ideas and different concepts. And I'll give you an example, of where I went to law school. We're in the midst of a big discussion about our school's name. I went to W&L in Lexington, Virginia, and you can figure out who that's named after pretty easily. But we're having a big discussion about what we do with the school and what we stand for, despite who the L in the name is named after, right?
Yes.
And we, the name has not been changed, but there are a lot of steps that are being taken to listen to other people. I think what you were getting at is kind of this deification process, right? That occurs to undo a lot of that so we can focus on a lot of the good things that happen at the school. But I think it's an ongoing conversational process. And as long as folks like you and me are willing to sit down and just say, okay, well, what do you think? What do you think? And have a good discussion, then I think at some point you'll get to situations where people are reading like American Hunger and Native Son and are like, wow, I had no idea about this. Or they listen to Mike Duncan's Revolutions podcast series about Haiti and they're like, wow, I had no idea about any of this, and I don't know if you've ever listened to that segment of Revolutions, but if you haven't, and anybody who's listening, that is a must listen. I had no idea about how Haiti came to be, its history, its evolution. That was completely mind-opening to me, and I commend that to anybody who's listening to this podcast. You'll learn a whole lot about it.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I didn't know a lot about Haiti either. I probably still don't know maybe as much as I should, but I definitely recently did a little bit of Googling about that. I was surprised as well. Didn't really know. I forgot. I thought I might have just saw something on social media or something about like the debt. So I agree. But yeah, I'll definitely add that to the list, and thank you.
Glad to pass anything that Mike Duncan does on to anybody. He is one of my favorite podcasters of all time. History of Rome is fantastic. Revolutions is great. And I can't wait to read his books that he's written. But we have gone way into left field. Although I do.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. This is part of why I do this. Is it gives me an opportunity to have good, long form, interesting conversations with people. And I remember the interview that I did with Tacoby Cofield. We talked a lot about coaching styles and communication styles, which was just fantastic. So I enjoy the opportunity to have these conversations. But let me ask you a little bit about how you got into football.
Oh, okay. How I originally got into football. I think I tried to play. My mom was terrified about letting me play football. So she was really against it. My family is Jamaican. I'm a first generation, and they played a lot of soccer. So I played a lot of soccer growing up. But I got a little too big to be running miles all over a field. So I was too big for like the elementary school team. I think there's like a weight limit, and I was like overweight for that team while I was in elementary school or middle school. So I didn't play then. But when I got to Walker, one of my mentors actually as well, he was my middle school, high school coach, and like a big mentor of mine who I still talk to regularly, Coach Dawson. And he convinced my mom to let me play, and then they kind of just quickly picked up from there. I mean, I was pretty bad when I first started playing football. Couldn't really finish a practice growing up. Like, I had coaches running with me to try to finish sprints, but a little work and a little determination would go a long way. But finally, definitely a crazy journey to go from not being able to finish practice to, of course, being a captain at Duke and then having dip my toe into a little bit of professional football. It was a pretty fun experience. But yeah, my mentor and coach convinced my mom to finally let me play.
Well, the soccer had to help with your footwork, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it definitely did. I definitely recommend anyone, especially having kids play multiple sports, might pick up some things that'll help you with whatever you decide to be your main sport or your collegiate sport. Footwork will definitely help, without a doubt.
So if you could, tell us a little bit about your recruitment process, who recruited you, and what made you decide I'm going to Duke.
Really, I got a letter from Duke maybe like freshman and sophomore year of high school, and I showed it to my mom, and I was like, would it be crazy if I actually was able to go to school at Duke? Because I didn't really know anything about the athletic nature of Duke. I just knew that it was like world-renowned as an amazing school. But I knew that at that time, my grades were not getting me into Duke, so it was kind of more of a joke for my mom. It's like, hey, look at this is funny. And then my senior year, like I said, shout out again to Coach Dalton. He drove me up to Duke's football camp at a big man camp, and I just dominated that camp. And afterwards, Coach Cutt invited me to his office, and I talked to him. after the camp, and a couple of days later he called me and offered me, and I immediately committed. And my parents are actually pissed. My mom and dad were like, "Why did you commit so early? You should have kept looking." But I knew if I graduated from school like Duke, things would be okay. So I still don't regret it. Of course, my parents wanted me to go to. I didn't have an offer, but I was like invited to a camp at Georgia and a couple other places. Like, you should have waited. And I was like, that's cool and all, but I'm gonna go get this Duke degree, and I don't regret it.
Well, we're certainly glad that you decided to come to Duke. I was watching some highlights of you to get ready for this, and I'd forgotten how quick you were at getting around some of those people. So next time you see your soccer coaches who started you out, tell them I said thank you for helping you develop in that respect.
Absolutely, will do. Yeah, it was. I love it. I love stunting and moving. Unfortunately, I didn't really love, no one really loves fighting double teams, but anything like movement-wise or like pass rush-wise, I loved. So, yeah, that stuff was a lot of fun. And I'll definitely shout out to all the soccer coaches with my rec and, high school soccer days. I actually won a championship while at Walker, too.
Really?
I didn't contribute much to it, but I was on the team. I was there.
Well, I'm contractually obligated to mention this every time soccer comes up in an interview. My wife played a lot of soccer. They actually didn't have organized soccer where I grew up, so I never really learned to play it. But when we were coaching my son's rec team, we coached him for 3 years. We had 0 losses, and our worst season, we had 1 tie. That was the legacy of the Gold Crusher. So I got to bring that up. All right, every time.
That is incredible. I think my Rochester, I grew up in Rochester. My little league team was the Purple People Eaters, and I still think about how hilarious that name is. So.
It's fantastic. That's the football connection too. It was destined for you to play football, playing on that team, and defense too.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I have to mention the Gold Crushers. So it was a crazy run. We're coaching our daughter's team now, and we may not quite have the same talent level that we did with the boys. We had a really talented group of kids, and we looked a lot smarter with those guys on the field. So, but let's talk a little bit about your time at Duke here. Since I interviewed your former teammate, A.J. Wolf, I've been trying to make sure to ask guys about the academic and classroom side of Duke. I think I've been focusing too much on the football element of it. Just tell us a little bit about your experience at Duke in the classroom and what it's like. I mean, I imagine the schedule had to be pretty difficult for you guys.
Yeah, I definitely think it was difficult, but I also think they did try to, at the time, it's hard to think of it as that, but I think as years past, I definitely think they definitely tried to do a great job. Of course, like AEP and like mandatory study halls and giving you mentors and people to help each other manage your schedule. And of course, I love Heather Ryan. She was my academic advisor while I was at Duke, and she often would give me the swift kick that I needed to kind of motivate me to do better at school. Definitely a little lazier than I should have been when it comes to school, but Heather really cared about how all of us did academically. So I definitely appreciate that as well. But yeah, it was difficult. The school aspect's difficult. The schedule, of course, you wake up early, got to go to practice. As soon as you get done to practice, you have to go straight to class. Then you'll have tutoring later on that night. You may have another tutoring session, or you'll meet with your mentor and kind of help you plan out what you have going on for the week, or maybe revise any papers that you may have to write or anything of that nature. So my first year was a rude awakening. I never really tried very hard at school. I kind of just, even though, like I said, I went to a pretty good private school, I never really gave it much thought. But after my first semester at Duke, and I received those D's, I was quickly reminded that it's not going to be, things aren't going to be the way they've always been. And I was going to have to work a lot harder than I have before if I was going to stay. So, but yeah, I definitely was able to lock in a little bit and improve those grades. But yeah, it was a unique experience, to say the least.
Well, hopefully mom and dad didn't end up getting on you about it.
My mom was ready to come to school. She was like, she was real on her way. She was ready to get in the car.
That's fun.
Yeah, I love my mom as well. Definitely shout out to my mom. She's definitely very passionate about my education and making good decisions. So I love her for that.
Yeah, well, you don't need mom mad at you. That's for sure.
Definitely don't want any problems.
So
I may be bigger, but she'll definitely still give me some tips. So gotta listen to mom.
moms can be mean. They're tricky.
Oh yeah.
They get you. So if I recalled and did my research correctly, you were at Duke from 2013 to 17. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
In your first year, you redshirted, and then you played the next 4. Correct?
Yes, I did.
So going through your time on the football end of things, you start out about as high as you guys can get. You win the Coastal. You guys go to the Peach Bowl, which is what I'm going to call it. And you were there for 4 bowl games in your 5 years. And the last 2 seasons, as high as you guys had been, 2016 and 2017, are full of injuries and a little bit of inconsistency in 2017, which we'll get to. But what was that process like where you come in and things are as high as they can be, and then to kind of go down into the struggles that you had your last 2 years?
Coming in hot, it was a great experience, especially going to the Chick-fil-A, the Peach Bowl, and experiencing that. I definitely thought, I still think about that sometimes. I really thought that game, after halftime, I was like, wow, this is going to win. So I definitely have some pain attached to that game as well. But it was a great experience. I definitely think that we kind of lost sight of all the struggles that a lot of those guys went through. Like you talk about Jacoby and AJ. I feel like a lot of those guys kind of made up in their mind that they were done losing. I feel like 3 or 9 years of Duke football had taken their toll on them, and like a lot of those guys, and they just played phenomenal. And I definitely think that we didn't live up in their memory at some places. We came into winning, didn't really get used to that pain of going out and losing over and over again. So I definitely think that we weren't as hungry as we should have been, especially in that 4 and 8 year, like my junior year. Some internal struggles and just losing sight of what we need to get done on the field to be able to go back to those big bowl games. But I think it was good for character-wise to kind of experience that struggle, like I said, going 4 and 8 and missing a bowl game after all we've known as going to bowl games and getting all these gifts. It's good to be reminded that you're not invincible, and it's not just going to come to you. You're going to have to go and take it.
Well, that 2016 season, I felt like you guys played your hearts out every game, but it just seemed like every time you turned around, somebody was getting hurt, and it was the kind of guys you couldn't replace. Like Sirk gets hurt, you guys lose Edwards. I mean, and Jones came in and played great, but you can't replace a guy like Edwards. Just what was that like? With just at one point, I think AJ was the only captain you guys had left who could go on the field.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, especially when big time players get hurt. But I mean, they tell you all the time that you need to just stay ready, and you never know what's going to be happening. And a lot of players, I think, you think that they're just saying that, but when your name is called, you have to be ready. And of course, it's hard to replace a lot of those big name guys. And even recently, you think of like some people have been hurt even recently, like Mark Gilbert, and some people are still having injuries at Duke now. There are a lot of impactful players that had to sit out, but unfortunately, that can happen. You have to be ready if you're a backup to be to do the best you can. But yeah, it hurt. I mean, losing impactful players and starters and captains is always going to be hard. There's not really any magic formula to get back from losing Sirk or when Kelby got hurt, or the list goes on and on of big time Duke players that unfortunately were injured. But you just got to be ready.
Let me talk a little bit about the 2017 season with you. You guys start out 4-0, then you lose 6 straight. You win 3 straight, close it out with a bowl win. What was happening that year that led to those streaks and some of the inconsistency?
I mean, that was awful to see that 6th run. I think started out how maybe got a little full of ourselves. I'd also say leadership-wise, and then probably did a better job kind of corralling everyone to bounce back from that. But I don't know. That's a mystery to me as well. It was painful to go on those runs, but like I said, you have to be able to go out every day and earn it. It's not going to be over 4-0, and now we're just going to go undefeated. It's like you got to forget the last game, prepare for this game, and make sure that you're ready to go and win it. What happened the week before doesn't matter. win or loss. We need to stay focused on the task at hand. So I think early on, the hype of being 4-0 got to our head, and then the despair of being 0-3 in the last 3 games or whatever kind of got to our heads as well. So it's difficult. Definitely have to be able to put those losses or wins out of your mind and get ready to come for the next week.
And one thing that was kind of weird during the 6-game losing streak, and I'm going to read these off, but you lose to Virginia by a touchdown and an extra point. You lose to Florida State by 7. You lose to Pitt by 7. And you lost to Army by 5. You were losing some close games, and it's not like you were necessarily getting the tar beat out of you every time. Did you? Was it just a problem with closing out games? Had you not gelled as a unit? What did you think was going on there?
I mean, I can't blame any one thing, but like I said, I feel like you have to go out and execute. We just weren't close games. I mean, your coaches always tell you it's a game of inches, and that's what it is. I mean, like one missed assignment here, one dropped ball there can be the difference between a win and a loss, especially in those close games. So on myself, as a staff, as an older guy, but also everyone on the team, we definitely have to make sure that we're doing our 111th and doing everything exactly the way it needs to be done on every play. And it's hard to lose by 3 and 7, of course, but it's a game of inches, and there could be a litany of small, this person stepped wrong, this one, like anything could have been the game decider, but it's hard to pick any one thing, any one person, or any one, topic to be the downfall of it. It's got to go out, and everyone has to do their part.
So you guys turn it around against Georgia Tech, and I remember that game because I was there, and you guys were down 14-3 at one point, and me and the guys that would go watch the games together every year started kind of rolling our eyes like, great, this is going to be another loss. And then it's like the lights came on, and you guys just rolled Georgia Tech out of the building, beat them 43-20. What caused you guys to turn it around and get hot at that point?
Got made a great decision. I feel like got to start off with any small big play and kind of build off some energy. I truly don't even remember this game, but I would say that we finally were able to have that same thought. Are we really going to lose again? Yeah. We have everyone and every team or every person have had that moment where enough is enough, and being able to fight back was a great win for us. But I definitely think we just had that similar thought of damn, are we going to have another loss? This is it. Or are we going to fight back and do what we know we need to do to be able to close out the game? So that's what we were able to turn it around. But I'll say some good, big defensive stops, being able to try to hold them from scoring, and also, of course, the offense doing what it needs to do to get some big touchdowns to close the gap. Proud of that one. Being able to come back from behind is always good. And those wins always, especially in the fourth quarter, always go up in the locker room. So, in the weight room. So it's good to remember that you can fight and come back and close out games.
Tell us, if you would, I remember when you guys were playing against Georgia Tech, Paul Johnson was the head coach. They ran the triple option, and I remember Jeremy McDuffie's knee getting torn up pretty bad as a result of their blocking style. What is it like playing against a team that runs that system, especially on the defensive side of the ball?
It's miserable. No defensive lineman will tell you that they love facing triple option, and you really just have to be really locked in. That'll definitely expose you as a defense if you're not able to do what you need to do and be where you're supposed to be, and not thinking that, I thought that he had the ball, or I thought no matter what is going on, you need to go where you're supposed to go, because getting cut is miserable. Get preparing for Army and Georgia Tech is always the worst. I hate having to deal with that. Of course, our practice structure changes. You have to deal with it in camp, getting ready to, those big, rubber balls thrown at your knees, and practicing cutting, getting cut. I hate that stuff, but it definitely, it will definitely expose an undisciplined defense quickly, the triple option, in my opinion.
So in that situation, are you guys pretty much just focusing primarily on gap containment and gap control and just staying exactly where you're supposed to be, as opposed to trying to do a little bit of improvising?
Yeah, there's no room for improvising. Definitely not really gap control, but just still being violent with your hands and getting off the ball, but just knowing that, if you're supposed to be in the A gap and you're not, that could be a touchdown. Or if you have the pitch man and you think that it's a dive and you go for the dive, that could be a touchdown. So you just need to do where you're supposed to be, make sure you're locked in on your cues and run the defense exactly how it's drawn up, or if you go where you're supposed to be, or we could be looking at a touchdown.
So are you trying to get into a just don't overthink it, just do exactly what you're supposed to do kind of a mode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Don't overthink it. Don't, I thought, yeah, that's the biggest killer, because I thought it went over there. I thought, no, you know where you're supposed to be, you know what the defense is, and go there.
Is that hard to – I mean, because you guys would always play at least two teams that ran that option a year. But is it hard to go from, a more – I don't want to say traditional, but a more standard offense to all of a sudden you're going to, 3 yards in a cloud of dust?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a difficult transition. Like I was saying, even just from the week before or the week out, or even during camp, having the practices change, and we're going through, like protecting the knees there and getting cut and beating cut blocks and just playing the triple option and having the scout team do it. It's a big transition to, 3 yards in a cloud of dust to a traditional offense. But it's hard to make the switch, but of course you have to. I think they do a good job. Our coaches did a good job trying to prepare us and then having a switch back as far as just the practice structure and what we do in the meeting in the film room and stuff of that nature. So I definitely think they did a great job preparing us for it, but it's hard to make the switch mentally and physically from I'm going to get cut to this is a traditional quote-unquote offense.
Well, you were part of two bowl game wins in your time at Duke, Pinstripe Bowl and the Quick Lane Bowl. Is that right?
Yes.
What was it like to win a bowl game, especially the Pinstripe Bowl, to be part of that team, the first bowl win since I think 1960? What was that like?
Oh, it was incredible. I definitely think that shouldn't have been a shootout. We needed to do some things better defensively, but being able to close it out regardless is just huge, especially like you say, it's a piece of history. Being able to be a part of that is, of course, awesome. But I actually heard definitely like going to, the Sun Bowl and all these different bowl games, not being able to close it out. We definitely bring that with you. So it was big to be able to get a couple wins and, of course, be able to have a couple bowl rings. I remember seeing one of my high school coaches, to Auburn, had a huge bowl ring. And I was just like thinking about how cool that I'd be able to get one, and then getting a few. So definitely enjoyed that.
Now, you were a captain on the 2017 team. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us how the captains are chosen and what it meant to you to be a captain.
Captains are chosen. We kind of all go in the meeting room and kind of cast our ballot for who we believe should be captain. So it meant a lot to me. I definitely tried. I felt like it was, my last year, and I tried to definitely pick up my presence in the weight room, and in the film room, and on the field. So I felt like I was able to get a few more sacks and have a little more impact in film, run some meetings, and do some other things. So, and of course, set that power clean record for the D-line. That was big for me as well. But it felt great that my teammates believed in me. So I definitely felt like I was trying to push to earn their respect, and to see that done in the captainship felt great.
A couple things I want to follow up with you on that you mentioned as we've been speaking. You mentioned Coach Albert. Tell us a little bit about Coach Albert, because I think that he was probably the best hire Coach Cutt has made during his time at Duke. He and John Latina are right up there, probably 1 and 1A, tied with one another. But tell us a little bit about Coach Albert.
Coach Albert is one of my favorite guys. I love Coach Albert. I actually spoke to him recently. I still check in with him. So I have great things to say about Coach Albert. Not only his coaching style, and like I said, I definitely saw some huge increase in my production following that year with him, but also just as a person, spending some time with him, likes to grill and have us over to the house and hang out with him and his family. So as a person and a coach, I love Coach Albert.
What is it? What is it about him that makes him so good at producing very skilled, very productive defensive linemen?
Because I brought it up when I was talking about the Canada, the yard off the ball, and how he instructs us as far as closing the distance and what to do with our hands. I don't think he just understands the game very well. His defensive line philosophy, I thought, was incredible, and his ability to also just push, motivate, and believe in players, I thought was also great. Like I said, was tasked with hosting some defensive meetings prior to games to be able to run some film. I feel like having that ability to kind of run my own show a little bit and call some games, stuff like that, and earning his trust there was a big confidence boost for me on the field. So I definitely think that his ability to connect with you personally and also just be a great coach. And also, I mean, he'll be, definitely get on to you, of course, like any coach will. But will definitely also be a great mentor and friend to you as well. So I appreciate that in him.
Now, you mentioned earlier going into halftime of the Peach Bowl, and then you guys come out and that one slips away. Have you ever watched that game again from start to finish?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I will.
Well,
but, maybe I should have, but no, I have not start to finish. I've watched some stuff. I think like the second half. I haven't watched the whole thing. I kind of watched like the downfall really only. But have you watched the whole game?
Yeah, so if
What are your thoughts?
if you have some time one day, Carlos Ray and I did about a 2-hour interview where we went over all the bowl games, okay, for that 4-year run. And
yes.
he
That's
told
a great football mind as well.
Oh man. Yeah,
he understands the game very well.
And he's coaching now. He's coaching the D line at Crest High. I'm ecstatic for the guy. That D line's going to be good, real good.
Oh, absolutely. I was definitely impressed with his ability. He definitely taught me a lot of things. I wasn't really the brightest football mind, but he understands coverages and everything very well. I definitely think he can break it all down well. So I'm happy to hear he's coaching, and I'm sure that defense is going to be awesome.
Right. And he told me to pay attention to the A&M offensive line when I watched that game again, and I did. And that A&M O-line really was, I don't want to say controlling the game, but they had, even when you guys were up, it's not like the O-line was giving a lot away. And it seemed to me like once A&M calmed down and stopped trying to hit a home run with every pass. Yeah, exactly. Then things got really complicated. And, of course, we all remember how it ended. So,
how it ended, yeah.
Ooh, what was that like on the sideline to see that game slip away?
Oh, it hurt. Especially like seeing Johnny bounce around and like he was incredible the second half. And of course, having Mike Evans having some big catches as well. It was mortifying to see that just slip away. Like I said, I'm in the locker room at halftime and on my phone. Like I think this is done. I can't believe I beat Texas A&M and he'll count your chickens before they hatch, or you'll have that demise and that sadness on your face. So it's sad to see that we couldn't close out. But I hurt watching, especially not being able to do anything. While redshirting, of course.
Let's talk a little bit about the team today. Do you keep up with the program at all?
Not as much as I should, but I definitely do. Talking to some guys. Of course, some of them leaving the program. Sad to see some of my guys go, but I do a little bit of watching, not as much as I should.
Well, what do you think about the team coming into this season? And I'll tell you, cards on the table, I'm cautiously optimistic about this team. I think if the O-line gels real well, they're going to be good. But they could also be like a 4-8 or a 5-7 team that loses a lot of close games, but you think, man, next year they could be pretty good. I'm just curious what you think about this squad.
I'm cautiously optimistic as well. I'd like to see what happens. I think that especially not being there and being at practice, I don't really know what's going on. I can't really speak too heavily on what is happening within the walls, but I'm definitely optimistic as well, especially coming off the last year. Hopefully they can turn it around. But yeah, I'll be watching and see what happens. I think also seeing what happens like post all the COVID restrictions. I wonder what's going to happen with that. I wonder. I think that was a really tough thing having to, go through all that testing and stuff and kind of see some people step away from the team because they didn't really trust it. And then, I don't know, that's been kind of a mess in my opinion. So I'm eager to see how all that will be dealt with and then how it just throws a wrench in being able to go out and play when you have to think about other things. So I think it's tough on the players also. So I'll be interested to see. I don't have a gamble on a number as far as wins yet, but I'll have to maybe go to some practice or something or see what happens first couple games before I have a real judgment on the team.
Well, obviously you were a player there. You played at a high level. I'm a fan. I'm very invested in the program, probably to my wife's annoyance, but all that. I mean, well, I'm almost 40, and this is kind of one of my main hobbies. So, but tell us from your perspective what we as fans could do to be better and to better support the program.
Go to the games. I mean, a stadium is empty far too often. I mean, once it's able to have fans in there, go. Even if you go drunk and upset that you may lose, just go. It's important. But outside of that, I mean, go and also just understand. I feel like fans in general, especially when you see at the pro level, even like you said, as far as like what I was saying about history and the schooling system, may not really don't know everything as far as the ins and outs. So similarly as I do not know every inch of the school system, I just have my opinion. You don't really know what goes into playing football, or playing professional basketball or whatever. I think a lot of people come down hard on these athletes and having no idea, and not even like playing middle school sports. So just kind of having the understanding that similarly, I don't know everything, you also don't know everything, and try to take all of that with a grain of salt.
And so to boil that down, clearly what you're saying is listen to this podcast, get more insight.
Yes.
Exact.
Yes, absolutely. come here, get some information first.
Okay, a couple other things I want to touch base with you on. What was your favorite moment at Duke, either on or off the field?
Favorite moment? Man, it has to be either winning, getting that division win my first year, or that bowl win in Yankee Stadium. I mean, having being a part of that history, and like you said, not winning for so long, being able to get a bowl win. Also, that four overtime victory at Virginia Tech, and getting my first sack in that game. That was, of course, big for me as well. I know you said one, but those are my three.
Hey, you know what, man? As many as you want. I'm terrible at just picking one thing. What's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? I always have qualifiers. So, but you brought up some good moments. And you mentioned two things from the 2015 season. And when Thomas Sirk came on and I interviewed him, he started talking about that game, and man, I just wanted to go out and either go for a run, work out, do something, play some sport. Man, that got me.
That game, he played great. So yeah, it was incredible. Being there and the noise in that stadium, like how loud it gets there. Man, I love it. So one day we got to get Wallace Wade that loud, but we need to win some games first.
Well, I've got tickets. We're going to a game this year. We go to one a year. I'm trying to look at other options maybe to get to a second one, but things are getting a little hectic with work schedule, with trials picking back up again. So, but I can't wait to see the Blue Devils play Kansas. I'm really excited about that one.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask, since you were on trials coming up, what type of law do you do? And
well, I'm a trial attorney. I think of myself as a trial lawyer. I handle predominantly personal injury and medical malpractice cases. I represent people who have been injured or hurt. I also do, since I've gone to my own firm now with three of the lawyers, a smaller firm, I do a little bit more than I used to do at my old firm, and I do a little bit of domestic relations work, help one of my partners out when he's kind of slammed with stuff. But I also have started doing some defamation cases, which are interesting. Not the kind of big stuff that we think about that's in, where the New York Times or the Washington Post is getting sued. But I do a little bit of that and just, stuff that gets you in a courtroom.
Okay, awesome. My fiance just graduated from law school and is going to be starting here in September. So that's why I was interested.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Where'd she go to law school?
She went to Emory in Georgia.
Yeah, that's a great, great law school. My first year at W&L, our dean, we had 3 deans in 3 years. It was a disaster. I can't believe anybody from our class still is involved with the school, but we actually are pretty heavily involved. But he went to Emory there, and everybody I know who went to Emory just loves it. Has nothing but good things to say about it.
I don't know if she would have nothing but good things to say about it, but she graduated. I don't know if I would go that far.
Well,
to say that she would love it, but she's definitely done. I'll say that.
Well, let me. I will offer this experience. When we were done and graduating, I think we all hated the law school, but once we got out and we looked back on it, we were like, the stuff that we didn't like about it wasn't really that big of a deal. It's compared to the life of a new associate at a firm, maybe we didn't realize how good we had it. So I don't know what the situation's like there at Emory. I can't say, but maybe with some time, those feelings will change some. But so you guys are engaged. She's just graduated. Has she taken the bar yet?
Just did on Tuesday.
Oh man,
so she's overjoyed.
How is she? How's she feeling? Because I'll tell you how I felt after I took the bar exam here. But how's she doing?
She is tired, overjoyed, kind of happy. Went to a nice dinner afterwards. But yeah, she's happy to. She's been studying all day, every day for a couple months now. So she's just relieved to be able to do something else.
Yeah, it's bar prep is miserable.
Yeah, she was not happy.
Is it a 1-day bar there in Georgia, or is it a 2-day bar?
It was 2 days.
Okay.
9 to 5, 2 days.
Well, hopefully she's in a better mood than I was. And I'll tell you this. So the first day for us was essay, and excuse me. And I got back, and we were taking the bar here in Roanoke, but I was living up in Lexington. So as I was driving back to Lexington, I realized I'd answered a question incorrectly. No. And I came home. I didn't eat dinner. I went to bed. I was convinced I was going to fail the bar. I went the next day, got up, drove back down there, took the multiple choice, came back, and I was in a funk for like weeks. Yeah. I was in a horrible funk. My wife was pregnant with our son, and I was convinced I was going to fail the bar. My career was over. It just wasn't going to work out. And I got into such a bad spot. We'd been married, I'm trying to think. So it was 2008. We'd been married for about 5 years. My wife calls my dad, and my parents called my mom and dad and just says, is this normal for him after some big thing that doesn't go well? Because I've never seen him this bad. And my dad called me and was basically like, son, get your you-know-what together, And so then we moved down here to Roanoke. I was waiting for my job to start after Labor Day, and I watched a lot of Olympic basketball. I watched the Redeem team, walked my dog every day, got in a good little rhythm, and, things got back to normal once I got back to work. So I hope your fiance is doing much better than I was.
She's doing pretty good now. Was definitely more in the bad mood during. Of course, all you do is study all day, every day, but definitely a lot happier now.
Well, good. And where's she going to be working at?
King and Spalding.
Oh, fantastic! That's a great firm.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, she's a superstar to say the least.
Well, I think you clearly have a career in college recruiting. You're obviously a closer, and you can attract the talent.
I'm a smart man.
No, well, tell her, give her my best. I don't know if she has
Absolutely.
friends or family in the legal field. I didn't when I went through that process. So you've got my number. If there's anything that she needs to run anything by somebody, I've been in practice for about 13 years now. I'm my door is always open. I'm always happy to help new lawyers.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. I'll definitely pass that on.
All right.
Thank you.
Again, my pleasure. We got a little sidetracked, so I can't let you go.
Sorry.
No. Don't apologize. I had a nice segue, but so I'm not going to be able to use that now. But you mentioned two things from 2015.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about Miami? Yes or no?
We can. I still see, like, people still send me the video, and I'm just like, the refs. I mean, of course, you should never leave the game to the refs. You should always do what you need to do on the field to take care of the game. You can't let it boil down to what the ref does or does not do. But, damn, that was tragic. It was tragic. But, yes, happy to talk about it. But
okay,
I was very upset the next day when they're like, oh, yeah, they suspended the refs. I was like, that doesn't help me. We lost the game.
yeah. So you say you can't leave it up to the refs. You didn't leave it up to the refs. You tackled the guy, and his knee was down. you won the game.
What I mean by that is like the scramble shouldn't have happened, and they shouldn't have been close enough. I mean, but yeah, they did tackle him. But I mean, it happened all the time where like, oh, like it didn't call a holding or they didn't, and things happen. So what I mean by leave it up to them is like, I mean, the fact that they didn't call those things why we lost. But I mean, you can't gotta win and win big, because what can go wrong will go wrong, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, so the thing that was interesting about that 2015 team, and particularly Cirque as a quarterback, was he really came alive with the game on the line. And those close game situations seemed to be kind of what he was about, and he would kind of lock in. And you guys as a unit would lock in too, and you'd start getting stops. You'd start, beating guys one-on-one. But were you on the field at all for that play, that final play?
No, I was not on the field. But I did. Also, that Miami game hurts me because two big offense. I jumped offside twice on that game, so that is also very triggering for me as well. But no, it's not on the field. But just watching it, just mind blown. Then I was like, oh, this can't happen. And then they reviewed it, and they're like, yeah, touchdown. I was like, this can't. There's no way you reviewed it. But
Okay, so I want to break that down.
Close it.
Yeah, no, I want to break that down into a couple of points. So I talked to Joe Ajibi, and he said that there was kind of this sense. Yeah, no, and he said, look, there was a sense that the game was over with the tackle, right? And
Yes.
and he said, look, we all are supposed to play to the whistle, but that's just coaches speak. When the play's over, it's over, and we all thought it was over. And the honesty about that was, I thought, fantastic. But two, that there were guys on the field who saw that was down. And what's important to me about that is the official who's staring right at it misses it, right?
Yeah.
So you guys
Not
are
only that, they review it and they still miss it. Not only did the ref there miss it, it's like you reviewed it and you're like, yes, this makes sense. It's
so
even worse.
Did you guys see it there at Wallace Wade, and you could tell, hey, we won, this game's over?
I mean, of course, I thought that, but I mean, you can't. I mean, I wouldn't have put much stock in it. I mean, they have to say that. What I think unfortunately doesn't really matter. It's about what the ref, comes back and tells us. But I thought that it was done, and I thought originally when I saw them doing this, I was like, this is a terrible idea. How would you do this? But and then it worked. So I guess joke's on me. But
well,
yeah, it was unbelievable.
What's the reaction on the sidelines from players, coaches, everybody when they come out that third time and say the game's over, Miami won?
Oh, everybody devastated, of course. It's just a shock, a disbelief, sadness, all of the emotions, of course. But, I mean, The consensus the next day was, like I said, you can't leave it up to the refs, and then now we have to put it behind us and get ready for the next one. And similarly to the streaks that we were talking about earlier, like the 6-game losing streak, as a team, if you can't put those kind of things out of your mind, you'll continue to suffer from them weeks later, and that helps no one. So as hard as it is, you have to try to put that to bed. But it definitely weighed on all of us. Weighed on me. I guess I can't speak for anyone else, but I was upset.
Well, I've talked to a lot of folks from that team, and they've all pretty much said what you said, that it affected them too, and it just was hard to get over. But actually, one of the most interesting comments that I had about that was again from Carlos, where I told him beforehand, I said, I'm going to ask you about this. And he said, that's fine. I'm an open book. You can ask me about whatever you want. I'll be fine. And so I asked him about it, and there was just radio silence for for a good period of time. Like, he had a hard time bringing it up,
Yeah. It's painful, especially because, like I said, I still see, like on ESPN, like someone will like repost it, and it's like, this wasn't even valid, but like it's still like hyped as like one of the greatest plays. It's like, it wasn't even a good play.
This
just bad referee.
It needs a 30 for 30, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be okay with that. But, unfortunately, it's done. Nothing to do about it now.
What?
But yeah, it was awful.
Well, I don't want to end on something negative. So, is there anything else you want to talk about? Your time at Duke, what you're doing now, anything you want to discuss? It's an open mic.
I don't know. I'll definitely say I would say I miss the teammates, missing camaraderie, and I think like any younger players though listening, I would say that enjoy the time, just like you were saying about how your time at law school. So as some time passes, you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. The same aspect will be with football as well. Try to live in that moment and enjoy it, and enjoy being with your teammates, because at one time it'll come to an end. So regardless of how long it takes, even if you play 20 years in the NFL, it'll still come to an end. So enjoy that time and be present, and to try not to loathe that waking up too much, because some guys wish they could wake up early and head back to the locker room.
Well, I just want to say thank you for your time today. I appreciate you coming on, and I just want to say to everybody who is out there listening, we have one more interview planned. We're still finalizing the details, so I'm not going to give away who it is, but we're going to stay on the defensive. We're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball for the next one. That will end season 1.
Good guys.
Do what now?
I said the good guys.
That's right. That's right. The offensive guys get way too much credit, right?
Oh, always.
So we're gonna do one more. Then when the season starts up, we're gonna go back to the blog. We're gonna come back. Hopefully, I'll work on lining up some season 2 guests. We can get this going. You guys know where to find us. BullCityCoordinators.com, at Duke FB coverage. Check out our good friends over at the Section 17 podcast. Listen to their interviews and their game-by-game breakdowns and recaps and what's going to be coming up for the games this season. We thank you for your continued patronage, and we look forward to many, many more good interviews to come.